Lamar Jackson has been ranked on a lot of lists over the last few months by a lot of people within NFL circles, and we have a widely respected NFL voice joining us to break down why Lamar was ranked where he was on his list. We talk about that and so much more coming up on this edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this little bonus Saturday edition episode, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. Plus, we bring you more coverage and daily Ravens content, even sometimes on the weekends. Obviously, the weekends will be a big thing come Sundays, right? That's big. And today it's game day, so the Ravens will face off against the Cowboys. We'll have a watch along for that game live during the game. Be sure you check that out. Then we'll have instant reaction right after the game. We'll have the squad show with myself and former Ravens receiver Qadry Ismail. And we have so much other Ravens content that comes your way on a daily basis. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Game days are always fun. In the final part of the show, we're going to dive into some players that we should be watching out for, not just for this game in particular, but for the rest of the preseason as the Ravens will wrap it up in a couple of weeks, just 2 games remaining. But in the first and second parts of the show, Mike Sando of The Athletic will join us, widely respected throughout league circles, throughout the league. He does incredible work, and he puts out a quarterback tier list every single year, and he's been doing it for a really long time. He polls NFL GMs, NFL coaches, former voices in the NFL. A lot of people, 50 to be exact, and we get a sense of where quarterbacks are ranked. And so for Lamar, a little spoiler, he was ranked number 4 on this list, but a tier 1 quarterback on Mike's list for the first time in his career. So Mike will be joining us to talk about the perception around Lamar, the perception around quarterbacks, AFC North quarterbacks, and what Lamar has to do to leapfrog some of these other guys that obviously NFL circles feel are ahead of him. So without any further ado, we'll get into our interview with Mike. Joining me now from The Athletic, Mike Sando, who obviously has a wealth of NFL experience and a wealth of quarterback tier lists. Mike and I talked before the show. Mike, this is year 12 for you doing this quarterback tier list. It's widely anticipated throughout. I want, first of all, for you to explain to the listeners, if you can, just how your tier list specifically works. I know tier list season is like July, August throughout the league, but I know everyone is different. There are a bunch of different criteria. First of all, great for you to be back. Can you explain kind of how your tier list works here?
Yeah. I think it's a unique one just because of the number of people, the process of it. You know, for me, I started after the draft. We then kind of know the quarterback setup for all the teams,
right?
And I'll go about calling or meeting with in person, 50 coaches and executives throughout the league. This year, I got 6 GMs, 6 assistant GMs, 6 former GMs working in different roles. I've got 8 head coaches. I think 19 other coaches, 15 of those are coordinators, a handful of other executives. So it's really a market analysis of where the league sees the teams based on the criteria that has been developed over the years from talking to people in the league, what they value at the position. And, tier 1 is the best. Tier 5 would mean we don't even think you're a starter. And there's some specifics to each definition, but I think if you understand that part of it, you'll want to be tier 1. We had 5 of those this year, maybe one surprise in there. And that's up from 3 last year. So there's, a lot to talk about, I think.
And making his tier 1 debut on your list, Mike, it is Lamar Jackson. This is Locked On Ravens. So we're going to talk a little bit about Lamar Jackson here. Was tier 2 last season. It seems to be like there's the big 4, Mike, at the quarterback spot between Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, however you want to rank those 1 through 4. Obviously, how it fell on your list was Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow took up the number 1 spot, tied for number 1. Josh Allen came in at 3. Lamar came in at 4. Before we get to the surprise, I think for a lot of people in tier 1 at number 5, was this right around where you thought Lamar was going to fall, coming off of an almost MVP season? You could argue he could have won it. Josh Allen got the award. Did you think he would finally make that jump to tier 1 after 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a bunch of other
Yeah.
incredible stats?
Yeah, and I think the main thing was too, there's two things about them last season was, number one, the last 2 years, he's been fine in the playoffs. Like, there used to be this big gap, you know. When I look at his career, he flashed on the scene early, and when you do that, you go to the top of tier 2. Like, Jaden Daniels is the top of tier 2 right now. He didn't make tier 1, but when you really come in as a star, you can go right to the top of tier 2. And Justin Herbert did that too. Now, Justin Herbert hasn't got over the hump, partly, I think, because of playoffs. There's been something missing, and he hasn't had the spectacular seasons. Lamar had a little bit of a lull 2021, 2022, COVID, contracts, his missed games. People were wondering, is he protecting himself? And then really the last 2 years, he's been lights out. And he hasn't been the reason that they have fallen short in the playoffs. I think that was always a hard thing early. He had to overcome the fact that, hey, great runner, not as great of a passer early. Is that being exposed in the playoffs? Well, it kind of was for his first, I think, 4 playoff games. He maybe had like a 68 passer rating. It gave people a little bit of an out and raised some doubt. But I think there's just no doubt the last 2 years. Last year, their defense wasn't as good. Justin Tucker struggled, and he was leading them in shootouts, winning games where it was clearly him. It wasn't just on a tee for him. He was carrying it. And so then when you add in the playoffs, I mean, obviously he didn't drop the pass late in the game. I think you couldn't say he was the reason for them not advancing. So I think it just went overwhelming. He actually doubled his tier 1 votes from a year ago, and now he's right there, really basically tied with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I think, had one more tier 1 vote. A little, I don't know. Burrow had all 50 tier 1. I think he easily could have had a couple of tier 2s. People probably still see Mahomes as the guy until somebody knocks him off, but it's a good tier 1 for the top 4. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and Lamar. Matthew Stafford sneaking into there probably needs some explanation, which I'm happy to do.
Yeah, let's dive into it, because I think with the big 4 of guys, as you mentioned, Stafford coming in as a tier 1 quarterback did surprise some people. We know that he is a championship winning quarterback, still very, very good at this stage of his career, despite his age. I'm sure that shocked you when you ran the numbers and saw that, hey, Matt Stafford's qualifying alongside guys like Lamar and Josh and Burrow and Mahomes. Can you kind of dive into how that came about?
Well, it's funny. As I get each ballot, I put them into a spreadsheet that then updates where it's at. So some guys will like waver, like Brock Purdy for some of the time was like tier 3, then he finished in tier 2. So I'm kind of watching it as it comes in real time. And Stafford was kind of back and forth right on the line of 1 and 2. Here's the deal, though. He's been high tier 2 before. Like last year, he had 21 tier 1 votes. That's kind of like the world Lamar's lived in, where a lot of the people want to put you in tier 1, and there's just enough that maybe see a hole or something missing that you're in tier 2. Well, this year he got 26 in tier 1. That's like the minimum needed to get into tier 1. So, Lamar's like at 46. That's a huge difference. So does the whole world view Stafford differently? You would say yes, a little bit, if my panel of 50 voters was the same this year as last year, but it's not. There's different voters in there, and it's just as likely that I happen to get 5 more people that maybe would have had Stafford in tier 1 last year, right? So for these guys that are on the edge of a tier like that, it's really easy for them to be in the other tier that they're not in, maybe just by changing a few of the voters.
When you were talking to your list of voters about Lamar in particular, you included a bunch of quotes from a bunch of different people, a lot of them praising him, talking about the jumps that he has made year to year. What was your overall consensus of what the messaging was about Lamar? You described it a little bit yourself in terms of the playoffs in the past 2 seasons, but when you were talking to the GMs, the coaches, and everybody involved, what was kind of your sense of how the league feels about him right now?
Yeah, they've given him a chance in a different offense to show what he can do, and he's done it. And then clearly, another theme was just not his fault for them not making the Super Bowl. And I think in the past, you're like, wait a minute, you're the star. If you're tier 1, you got to be raising your team up. Maybe you go down swinging, like Joe Burrow this last season. Obviously, had a terrible defense, had him at 9-8, right? So there's really nothing you could hold. There's nothing you could point to on Lamar anymore. Really to be tier 2, unless you I think there was a couple people that there's one person maybe only had Mahomes and Burrow in their tier one. They're just super emphasizing the passing component, I guess, because maybe people would think Burrow is the best pure passer in the league, and he's probably a better pure passer than Lamar and Josh Allen. But I think the vast majority of the league is like, it was just a slam dunk. Just, I mean, Lamar's done it. He's earned it.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point earlier about when you burst onto the scene like Lamar. And Lamar's MVP year in 2019, Mike, had 36 passing touchdowns. And you mentioned Jaden Daniels going to the NFC Championship game. The way that these quarterbacks perform is not particularly linear in terms of that, where you can't just expect it. If we were talking about Lamar improving in passing touchdowns every season from 36 in 2019, he'd have 75 a season by now. It's just
Right.
not possible. And in terms of Jaden Daniels, a guy who I'm worried about him in particular. I mean, if the Commanders do anything less than making the NFC Championship game this year, it's like, oh, well, maybe Jaden Daniels isn't who we thought he was, when in reality, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, even last year, Stroud got 12 tier one votes, and this year he only got one. Is Stroud a worse quarterback now than when he came in? Probably not, but he had, they took their lumps a little bit. And I think Jaden Daniels is going to face better game plans, right? He's on everyone's radar now, and their team isn't. How good is the team around him? I read today, Cliff Kingsbury's getting frustrated with the fact that the receivers aren't there. When you have a little success, how does the team handle that, right? I think Jaden Daniels will handle it well. He seems very mature. There doesn't seem to be any mark against him, but it's a team game, and you're right. We would all take the under on an NFC Championship game for that team this year, just because, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think for what the Commanders have, and it echoes a little bit to what the Ravens had during that 2019 to 2020. There was a lot of questions going into that 2019 season about Lamar in year two, about, okay, we saw good flashes during his rookie season. Can he take that to another level? Obviously, he did that. But then you mentioned it kind of, Greg Roman's offense stalled out a little bit. The injuries caught up to him, but he has shown that in a different offense, when healthy, he is that upper echelon quarterback. And, seems like the league is there on that with that.
I think he had a weird lull there where COVID was part of it, and everyone was a little bit disconnected. And was it time to make some changes with the offense? And then he wanted a contract. Remember, he was missing at the end of the seasons. It just felt off there in the 21 and 22 seasons. And if you look at it, 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 17-7. Those aren't Lamar type years, right?
Right.
The last 2 years, now this last year was unbelievable. I don't know if he's going to go 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions every year, but even the year before, 24-7, he's going to be somewhere in that range, right? 30-10 maybe, right? I think that's what we're expecting of him. It just feels like he and the team are in a better place.
Still a lot of conversation with Mike on the docket. We'll take a quick break here on Locked On Ravens, but coming up, Mike will be back, so stay tuned. First, this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Now, I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions that I really wasn't even using, and so canceling those alone saved me money every single month, and I have been really trying to save. Monarch was an absolute game changer this, because I don't need all those subscriptions. I don't need them because I'm not using them. Monarch helped me with that a ton. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Back here, Locked On Ravens, second segment of this bonus edition on Saturday. Game day. Happy game day. Ravens and Cowboys facing off in Dallas. We'll get to some players to watch for the game today and, of course, for the rest of the preseason for the Ravens in the final part of the show. But we'll round out our interview with Mike, talking quarterbacks, talking tier lists, talking Lamar Jackson. Let's get back into it. I think when people talk about quarterbacks, they also do look at the teams around them. They're the roster that their general managers give them. And for Lamar Jackson early in his career, he didn't have his Zay Flowers or Rashod Bateman, or for that matter, I mean, he won the MVP with Seth Roberts, Willie Snead, and those types of receivers. He is an elevator. But then when you get to last season, Mike, and you hear some of the conversations around Lamar, oh, he has Derrick Henry, he has all these weapons. And then the Bills took a different approach. They got rid of Stephon Diggs and they kind of went with a by committee approach with their receivers. And Josh Allen clearly elevated those guys as well. When you go through your list and when you talk to GMs and coaches around the league, do they factor in the rosters that these guys have around them, do you think, a little more than in previous seasons? Because we know that Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, two phenomenal wide receivers. Now, it doesn't take away from who Burrow is as a quarterback, but it is a factor I've seen pop up more recently.
I think they note it, but I don't see it totally steering, influencing it heavily, unless it's a situation like San Francisco, where Kyle Shanahan, like he's just perceived as like, hey, Garoppolo had great numbers too, and we know he wasn't amazing, right? And so I think in that type of a system where the quarterback himself is maybe lacking special traits, like nobody would be like, oh my gosh, Pat, did you see what Purdy did? Right? We just know he's going to run the offense well. I think in that case, that's why Purdy is a low two, when really, if we just like covered up everybody's names and looked at his numbers for the last 3 years, he might be a low tier one, right? But we just kind of know he's not. Does that make sense?
No,
and I think we know that from the context of everything. And so I do think the supporting cast matters. Sometimes the draft status, can linger and take a little bit longer for people to overcome being a later pick. I've seen that. I think Russell Wilson needed a while for that. Also, if your team is really good on defense and runs the ball a lot, like Jalen Hurts this last year didn't really get a bump for winning the Super Bowl because it was perceived that they kind of minimized him a little bit, right? And they won a different way. And so we didn't really get to see, in the Super Bowl, he was great, but we didn't really get to see week to week putting it on Jalen Hurts' back, right? So I think in that case, it hurts Jalen Hurts.
And at least not for Jalen Hurts. The early career Jalen Hurts, that's not who he played as the past couple of seasons, and clearly that might have impact. But you also look at Philly's roster up and down the board, and you're right. Yeah. It's like, well, Saquon Barkley took on a lion's share of that work. Jalen Hurts did his job and was still a good quarterback and got them to where they needed to go. But then there is that supporting cast aspect of it that I think it carries interesting weight at times.
One thing that I thought was an interesting thing, I think I put the quote in there too. Like somebody said, I hate playing Lamar with Derrick Henry. Like that combination, they play so well off of each other. It's like, you're right, Lamar elevates people, but Henry is elevating him too. Like this is a great tandem of pick your poison, isn't it?
It's one of the best 1-2 punches I think that is in the league right now, because you can't really with Lamar, and it's no shade, Mike, to guys like Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins who had great years in Baltimore. But it's just different when you have Derrick Henry, because I think as a defender, you would probably always lean towards Lamar on certain option plays or reads to say, we can live with Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins beating us if we have to. We cannot let Lamar Jackson beat us. Whereas now with Derrick Henry, and we saw multiple plays last season where they'd fake it to Derrick Henry. 4 guys would go with Derrick, or 4 guys would go at Lamar on a fake, and the other one would just take it right up the sideline. I mean, it truly is. I call it multiple different things, but I just think having an effect that it has, it truly is there. Even if both guys don't benefit from stats on plays, you see it over the course of the year.
Absolutely. And I think Hurts had some of that with Saquon Barkley as well. I think that it's a really dynamic combination. And you would think for the Ravens in having another year of it together, you assume good coaching, that it's not going to get easier to defend.
Right. Exactly. I guess the one I'll use is gravity. I mean, both Lamar and Derrick Henry have such gravity on the field where you need to go with them, and utilizing their skill sets in the best way is involving them both in the actions of plays so that defenses have to choose, and it thins the lines of what they're doing. But in terms of the other AFC North quarterbacks, Mike, obviously Aaron Rodgers, one of the most polarizing figures in the NFL, took a while to decide on Pittsburgh here, but he is now in Pittsburgh. He took a pretty substantial drop from where he has been. And of course, this is not prime Green Bay Aaron Rodgers we're talking about. And then the Cleveland situation, you mentioned tier 5. Well, Kenny Pickett in a tier of his own for the Browns. And, obviously rookie quarterback's not factored in on this. So no Shedeur Sanders, no Dylan Gabriel. But in terms of the North in general, you have Burrow, you have Lamar. Yeah. People feel like the Steelers, depending on how good or bad the Bengals defense is, could be the Ravens' biggest competition in that North division. But how do you see Aaron Rodgers, and how does the league see Aaron Rodgers based off of who you talk to?
Well, Rogers got votes in 4 tiers, which is hard to do. Okay, he got one holdout vote in tier 1, and then a smattering, maybe it was 15, 16 in tier 2, a bunch in tier 3, a few in tier 4. I think you can justify all of those. The idea that he's going to be prime Rogers, forget about it, right? That you can't do that at age 41. I don't think even Brady, who did it probably better than anybody, um, you know, it catches up to you a little bit at a certain point. So I do think he could be healthier than he was last year. But the question I have is how long is it going to take to get everyone on the same page there when you have Rodgers showing up in June, DK Metcalf's a new arrival. You don't really see any connections between Rodgers and the receivers or the coordinator there for that matter either, Arthur Smith. You would think that this is going to take some time to sort itself out. And, maybe the best case scenario for them is defense keeps him in games. Rodgers pulls out a couple early. And then over the course of the season, if he's able to, physically do it at age 41, maybe they hit their stride a little bit and feel like they've got something going.
Yeah. At this point, it's just going to be the Steelers have needed to have a quarterback that is, I know the word game manager or the term game manager might gets a bad rep these days because I think everybody associates it with, oh, this guy's just a below average quarterback. But truly, if you have the roster around you, all you do need, Trent Dilfer in 2000 with that Ravens defense, all he needed to do was not mess up, play the game and do his job. He didn't have to be some flashy quarterback, and the Ravens won the Super Bowl that season. I think for Rodgers with the Steelers defense, hopefully with the additions of Jalen Ramsey and others as well, mentioned DK Metcalf. I hope that we'll get some competitive Ravens Steelers games this season because usually we do. They're that like 18-16 slop fests, which are always fun in the AFC North football. But just to round it out with a Lamar question, Mike, with him coming in at number 4 behind Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes, it seems like that's the consensus of where the league is on him right now. Now, he's a tier 1 quarterback on this list. He is in the conversation. He is right there with those guys. You could rank those 4 in any different array you want to, and people would be like, yeah, okay, that probably checks out. But is that next step? Is there anything Lamar can truly prove on the field to you that could say, hey, all right, now he's in, now he's 3, now he's 2, now he's 1 throughout league circles?
Absolutely.
Or is it truly just the Super Bowl?
Well, look, if he were to continue to produce the way he did last year, that type of a season, that's a true MVP season. Look, if you're in that realm, not making the Super Bowl would probably work against you if Mahomes kept doing, like, to me, if Mahomes keeps going to the Super Bowl, like, I don't care if his stats are down, like, he's going to be unanimous tier 1. Don't you think? They're winning close games. Like, if this sort of thing continues, I think what it takes for Josh Allen or Lamar or Burrow for that matter, even though Burrow tied him, I don't think people think Burrow's better than Mahomes, certainly pedigree wise. I think the conversation will shift when, an Allen, Lamar kind of have these types of stats that are better than Mahomes, and they get past him to get to the Super Bowl, right? I think it's a 2-pronged thing to overtake. And let's face it, if Lamar has seasons like if he keeps having seasons like this, they probably will make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, especially with the roster that he has around him now. If not now with this group, not that Lamar won't ever have chances again because he's still 28 years old, but at this point, the roster is well positioned for them to make a run. He is Mike Sando of The Athletic. Mike, I appreciate you. Please, before I get you out of here, tell people where they can find you, where they can find your tier list, and everything else you're working on.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find me at, excuse me, got something in my throat, theathletic.com, The Athletic app, and of course on X at Sando NFL.
Mike is phenomenal. Really appreciate him taking the time to join the show. He's been on with me a couple times now, and every single time he joins, it's a very insightful conversation. He has a lot of really interesting points, and I always enjoy talking to him. So be sure you support Mike and all of his work. Links to his work will be in the description down below. But coming to the fun part of the show, going to be diving into some players to watch for the Ravens for the remainder of the preseason. So stick with us. Plenty to come here on Locked On Ravens. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. One of my favorite features, new guillotine leagues. They just dropped, and every week, the lowest-scoring team is eliminated, and the last one standing wins. So whether you're all in on something new or you like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo's got you covered. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this game day edition of the show on Saturday. Just wrapped up our interview with Mike Sando, our conversation. It was incredible. Mike is always great when he comes on the show. But now we're going to move into the Ravens preseason. 2 remaining games left for them. We're going to dive into some players to watch. And by the way, order of operations for tonight, we're going to have the live watch along here, and we're going to have that right at game time. Then after the game, we're going to go live again for an instant reaction episode. That'll be just me. And after my instant reaction episode, we're going to go live again, and we're going to have Sam Njoku and Kadri Ismail join me for the Locked On Ravens squad show, and just a jam-packed night of Ravens content as we will have all season here on game days. But some players to watch. Let's just go position by position and dive into it. The quarterback position needs to show a lot over these next 2 weeks. You know, obviously with the Dallas game, Cooper Rush revenge game potentially. And again, if you've already watched the Dallas game, if the game is over and you're tuning into this, watching or listening, you already know what happened. But obviously I'm speaking in the morning here on Saturday, August 16th. So I don't know that yet. Cooper Rush and Devin Leary need to have big games here. Would make me, one, feel better about their backup quarterback position. Now, the backup quarterback spot is not necessarily the be-all, end-all here because you're hoping that Lamar Jackson can play a full 17 games this season, and Cooper Rush is only going to have to play in mop-up duty and blowouts. That's ideally what happens for the Ravens this season. But you know that sometimes injuries happen in the NFL. In fact, a lot of the time they do. And knock on wood, the Ravens can be as healthy as they can this year. But in the event that Lamar does have to miss some time, you want to feel good about who's behind him. And right now, I think that the jury's still out on both Cooper Rush and obviously, to a bigger extent, Devin Leary. Running back wise, you know, we're not going to see any of the big guys in this game. And honestly, for the rest of the preseason, it feels like. So can Rasheen Ali make a case for the 4th running back spot if the Ravens do keep 4? I still don't think they do. But, you know, Rasheen Ali has 2 preseason games to prove that. I thought he started slow in that first game, but ended up really making an impact on that one drive that he had and you know, made up for it. Wide receivers, it's going to be tied to the quarterbacks, obviously. You know, the receivers didn't really have a lot of opportunities to go out there and, you know, catch footballs because, well, they didn't get good passes. But Dayton Wade, Anthony Miller, Tez Walker, LeJontay Wester, right? All those guys, I think, hopefully are going to be able to have big games. You obviously have other guys as well, Malik Cunningham, like, I hope that they get their opportunities to shine in this one. Tight end position, nothing really doing there, I don't think. Charlie Kolar will probably get some snaps, but, you know, it is what it is there. You're not going to see Mark Andrews, obviously not Isaiah Likely. So it's more so guys playing for practice squad spots or other opportunities outside of Charlie Kolar. I think offensive line, though, is the big one here. All eyes going to be on Daniel Falele for these next 2 preseason games, and rightfully so. He struggled in that first game, had some really tough plays, had some good ones too, but you know, those tough plays, he loses really loud. And the Ravens clearly are very high on him. They like him a lot, coaches, teammates alike. And this is the guy we're going to see at right guard. It is what it is. I think there should have been more of a competition. That clearly is not how it went for the Ravens. So hopefully Falele can have a better showing in these next 2 games. Andrew Voorhees, I'm sure, will get some snaps as well. Roger Rosengarten. I think those are the 3 starters you'll see. And I don't know how many snaps they'll get over the next 2 games here, but I'd probably expect more against Dallas and then I guess a little less against the Commanders in week 3. On the D-line, it's Mike Green, it's Adisa Isaac, David Ajabo, Aeneas Peebles, you know, those guys. TJ Okoye was really good in that first game for the Ravens. They have a lot of depth there in their front. And again, it's guys, their goals are to make the Ravens keep them, make another spot on the roster for their position. David Ajabo, make a spot for a 6th outside linebacker. CJ Okoye, make a spot for a 6th defensive lineman. Those are the challenges that the Ravens are going to have to face. And it's a good problem to have. It's a really good problem to have, but you can't keep everybody. The Ravens do a really good job of drafting, identifying talent, developing that talent. And you know, for the Ravens. Oh, and one guy I forgot to mention on the offensive line is Corey Bullock. Corey Bullock, former Terp, by the way. Shout out to the Terps. he's going to be someone who the Ravens did develop. They signed him as an undrafted free agent. Now, he's not a rookie. He spent last year with the team on the practice squad, but he apparently, like, based off everything we've seen, he got the start at center. He seems to have a grip on that second center spot. So he's someone I'm also going to be watching over the course of these next couple of games. Inside linebacker wise, definitely think you have to make some room to watch Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan, Jay Higgins and Chandler Martin. Also, those two had really good games in the first one against the Colts, but it's that spot that's up for grabs next to Roquan Smith. Really hasn't felt like anybody's taken a hold of that. Seems like Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan really didn't flash a ton, whereas the two undrafted guys did. So you're hoping that they're going to be able to, have some better moments, those two guys, in this game against the Cowboys and obviously against the Commanders next week. Corner-wise, Ruben Lowry. Pumped to hear about Ruben Lowry. Seems like his roster spot is all but secure. And again, you hate the way that it happened in terms of the injuries to Bilal Kone and Robert Longerbeam, but you could have honestly made the roster if those two guys were healthy. He's been playing that well in training camp, had a pretty good game in the first one against the Colts. Got to look at other guys as well. I think Jalen Armour-Davis is a guy that's probably going to get some early reps in this one. TJ Tampa is going to continue to need some snaps here to get some NFL experience under his belt. And then safety-wise, Sanusi Kane, Bill Braid, some of those other guys. Ruben Lowry's playing some safety now for them, so we'll see there. And then Tyler Loop, Jordan Stout, right? The special teams unit. That's a unit that the Wolf Pack is all gone. Morgan Cox and Sam Cook, Justin Tucker. It's now Nick Moore, Tyler Loop, and Jordan Stout. Can those guys continue their positive trends? Loop obviously had a miss and a make in week one. Jordan Stout had some good punts and some ones you could have maybe gotten a little more of a hold of. But, at this point, the Ravens are going to need to rely on their special teams this season for a lot of different moments. And hopefully they can show over these next 2 weeks that they are ready for the challenge. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens, at least for now today on Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. We'll be back here later tonight with the watch along, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So be here. It'll be really exciting. I had a great one the first time around. Over 9,000 people tuned in for that one. So hoping to get some more people in there for that. I kind of announced it last minute. So hopefully now people knowing about it, we'll get some more people in there. But regardless, that's really fun. After the watch along will be the instant reaction episode live. And then we will also have the Locked On Ravens squad show live as well. So a lot coming our way on Locked On Ravens today. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay tuned for all we got coming our way tonight. And I'll see you right back here later on Locked On Ravens.